Welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jarrod Downey, and today we have Dorado Drilling. We have the owner, Matt Falcons, in, and we have Garrett Herzig in, HR Operations Manager. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome to Mining Now.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I was saying just before we started, it's fun for me because and I love all of our American clients. I love all our clients from back east, all over the world. We do an Australian tour. But with all that busyness, it's about 1 out of 20, and I'm probably exaggerating. It's probably more like 1 out of 40 episodes are actually from British Columbia. And you're here. You operate here, operate all over Canada, down to the US a bit. But
Yep.
that's where you headquartered.
We're headquartered in Vernon, BC, and our main shop's in Smithers, BC.
Oh, okay. I was just saying, Garrett, before we started, we had hockey wars because I used to play for Ashcroft, Vernon and Ashcroft and Lillooet, and there was some wild times.
Scrappy little town.
Scrappy little
Good
town.
diamond drillers come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got building a company out of BC. When did this company start? You founded it, right?
Yeah, founded at the very end of 2006, and we're off to the races 2007, 2008 with a couple of very busy years.
What prompted the start? You and I have chatted a bit, so some of these questions I already know when I'm asking it for the audience. How did you actually start? Usually I do that at the end of the episode, but it was an interesting story. So I threw it.
I worked for a couple big companies in Western Canada and Northern Canada, and it was pretty challenging dealing with some of the employees for sure. Right, there were some pretty tough customers. End of the season, I had to run around town, gather up all the drunk drillers out of hotel rooms and put them on airplanes. And I didn't really want that to be the rest of my career. So
I'm going to give you 5 names of guys I played hockey with and see how many.
probably 2 or 3 for sure.
Yeah. You know there's going to be at least one.
Yeah.
And so we're a pretty rough environment.
Yeah, it was. And the mining business in general is a rough environment. Exploration drilling is probably even a little rougher than that. And it's a work hard, play hard culture. But it was kind of my goal, and it's kind of the ethos of our company to change that.
I want to play the devil's advocate on this and see how you sort of responded to it, because on one hand, you need those guys, though, because it is tough. Just the weather alone is going to eliminate about 99% of the population is going to go, no thanks.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you pay me. Then those guys go up. They're remote. A lot of times they're away from family. So you got to have people that can handle that. And then, they do want to play hard. I'll be honest, that if I was 25 doing it, I'd probably do the exact same thing. So how have you managed that now? Actually, before I ask that, what is both your backgrounds coming from the industry? Garrett, maybe start with you.
I was up at the ski hill operating snowcat, and during the winter, and then in the summer, I was building chairlifts. So that led right into diamond drilling, which was basically operating a machine and constructing on the go.
Yeah, in tough climates.
In tough climates, yeah.
And then what was your background?
I started drilling when I was 19.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What made that? How did that decision happen?
My stepdad was a driller, and I kind of grew up on stories about flying in helicopters, finding gold, being on top of the mountain, stuck in exploration camps on glaciers and stuff. And it sounded a lot more romantic than working at the mill in Vernon.
Yeah. And so now you start your own company. What was your approach to that? I mean, we're going to get into projects you've done. There's lots, but I am quite interested in this because you've got to get those tough guys, and now your goal, it sounds like, is to create this environment.
Yes, like starting with one drill was pretty easy because I could handpick a crew of like 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah. Right.
So I picked guys that had healthy habits at the time, right? And they were pretty focused, young guys that were motivated, and I'd worked together with most of them in the past, and they were keen to follow me on a new adventure.
Right. And then how did you is it a lead by example? Is that sort of what happens if the top guys are sort of keeping it together? Does that help?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, for sure. We haven't always lived the exact healthiest lifestyles, but we certainly are now.
Yeah.
And we've tried to turn off that like drinking culture and stuff. And a lot of pretty much everybody in the company that's a leader has a good outside hobby, whether it's snowmobiling. Garrett's big into jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guys are into mountain biking, stuff like that, right?
Pro athletes.
Yeah,
so that's what kind of led us into, training guys like that to drill instead of just picking guys who are mechanically inclined and might need some money.
I gotta ask a question about jiu-jitsu because you hear that nothing makes you more humble than doing, because you just lose all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's your main job when you first start is to lose.
Yeah, yeah. Even in the higher levels, there's always on the bottom.
There's always someone better. Absolutely. Yeah.
But that kind of experience, like even that, that must sort of have, like, did you start that young?
Yeah, I started around 20 years old, so I've been into it for about 20 years now.
Yeah, and does that sort of help you in?
Absolutely, it's helped us break down the fundamentals of drilling to train it. It's basically how martial arts does that.
Detail.
Yeah, exactly. They break it down to the smaller details, and fundamentally build people up until they're black belt.
There's some leadership stuff we're going to circle back to, but I actually want to just jump into right now. What is the services that Dorado offers?
Skid-based drilling is the majority of our work. We do helicopter work as well. And then we've recently got into track-mounted drills. Did a small project with one last year, and we're purchasing another larger track-mounted drill for a new project in Idaho this year.
In Idaho. So you're doing work across how much work is in the US for you?
Last year it was maybe like 3 or 4% of our business. We did a small project in Alaska. This year it's potentially going to be maybe 10-15% of our work's going to be over the line between Idaho and Alaska.
When you're talking about I've never been on a drill rig. I've, Savin equipment, everybody knows my ties to them. So it's, I've seen lots of drills, never actually worked on the rigs. How different is if you go skid, heli, centrifuge, track, like all these different drilling? How much different is one? Is it hard to transfer from one to the other?
Skid-based drilling is the most common. And I mean, you can drive a pickup to the drill. It's the simplest form of drilling, not to say the drilling's simple at all.
Yeah.
When you get into helicopter drilling, there's a significant amount of complexity that's added to it. You have to be very safety focused and got your head screwed on right. Mm-hmm. When there's a helicopter that costs $3,000 an hour hovering over your head, the stress turns on, right? But it's exciting if you know what to do. But if you get panicked, you can make a mistake and somebody can get hurt pretty easily.
Right. How do you get into each of these sectors as the company? So you started off with the skid drilling, then?
We started off with helicopter drilling.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. And then as we expanded and wanted to take on more market share and work in bigger exploration projects, we just took the helicopter drills, put them in skid shacks, and
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you sort of grow that? I mean, 2006, you've probably gone through some ups and downs. I'm not getting into, your revenue streams and that. I don't want to give your competitors too much information.
Yeah.
But you must have gone through all the fluctuations that the industry goes through.
Yeah, there's been 3 cycles. 2009 was a down year, and then it corrected quite quickly. End of 2012, it dropped off, and it didn't really come back until 2018, 2019. And then there was a big boom after COVID. It kind of peaked in 2021, and then it's dropped off, and we're kind of in the bottom of the market now, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
But things picked up significantly for us last year. We were able to grow by 30% last year.
Wow. And so there's this mixture of your services and the business development that I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm going to try to balance the two out. How different was your approach in 2009 to 2012? And then I think the last dip you said was 2016?
Or the last dip was probably, it started to drop off about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
2021 was the peak, and then it's been on a downward trend since then.
How have you approached each one differently? Like, how have you grown, do you think?
The first one was the toughest because we had 2 drills and we were tied to one client. So when they canceled their exploration project in 2009 and I had a new baby on the way, there was nothing to do.
That's a fun conversation to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you join the company?
In 2008.
Yeah. In 2008. Oh,
yeah.
You've both been through this. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I get to split this question
after. Yeah.
So, so how did you deal with it?
I actually went to work for a friend of mine that owned a company.
Wow.
And I went from working like 8-10 months a year to like working for him for 6 weeks in the middle of the summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, but you were still just poking around trying to find work?
Yeah, poking around trying to find work. And then the following year in 2010, we didn't find a project until probably June of that year. Went all the way to the Yukon for a 400-meter, like 1 week long project. And then after that, the tap kind of turned on and the rest of 2010 was great. And then 2011 and 2012 were our best years at that time.
And then the next step, how did you, as a company in both management and just finding work as sort of when things slowed down, how did you sort of approach the next one? How did you expand?
We hustled really hard to find work. I went to Mexico to try and find work there, went to some conferences, and there was really nothing out there. And like when it dies off, everybody's doing the same thing, right? Everybody's out hustling, everybody's pounding the pavement. We're lucky in 2014, I was able to find a decent amount of work to keep like 3 drills busy. And we just kind of kept rolling from there.
And so were this in terms of what kind of drills were they? Were you doing heli still, or
we were doing a combination of skid and heli, mostly skid work in southern BC at that point in the history. Yeah.
So for you, when you're working, for a company, and you're watching, and you guys have known each other a long time, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Since we're about 15 years old.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's stop this and let's get into some of those stories.
Yeah, that's probably 30 years now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Same with my business partner. We've known each other our whole lives, literally. Yeah. So, how do you sort of approach that and make sure in those dips, that you're contributing? People don't realize how much the team sort of needs to build up leadership as well.
Yeah. Well, as an employee, to me, I just approached it as a seasonal worker. I had my background at the ski hill to rely on, so I would just go work at the ski hill for the winter.
Right.
And then we put in a few weeks every summer, and that would, the pay was pretty good, so subsidized most of my life until the winter would roll around again. And then a couple years passed, and it just became full time again. Was able to retire from the ski hill and continue drilling year round, and those couple months off were spent in the shop fixing up drills and getting ready for the next season.
Did you enjoy that? To both of you, did you enjoy that part of that struggle, or was it rough?
When you're in it, it's tough.
Yeah.
But when you get beyond the struggle and you can kind of enjoy the success a little bit, it's definitely makes it sweeter for sure.
You definitely appreciate the time.
Those green lights.
Yeah. When you're like, wow, we worked all year this year.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
And now the company's at a point, you were giving me some stats of just in BC, the drilling, I think you said you said 1 point?
Drilling peaked at like 1.4 million meters in British Columbia in 2021. And in 2024, it was down to about 600,000 meters.
But your company, you've stayed, there's been ups and downs, you were saying, but you still managed to maintain quite good revenue through that. Yeah,
we've got some good clients that we work with that we're fortunate enough to work for in Manitoba, Northwest Territories, Yukon. Still did a fair amount of work in BC last year, but not as much as we traditionally did. Yeah. And then we broke into Alaska as well last year, which was a big help it was a baby step to start international work. And that's enabled us to get onto a bigger project this year in Idaho.
Okay. So this is where I want to get to then. You've now turned this into a company that's going from, sort of off and on to now now this is a full-fledged operational company. You told me some of the numbers off camera. We're not going to get into that now, but it's good revenue streams, all that sort of thing. Was there a change where you shifted and realized, took your management to a different level?
Yeah.
I want to get your feedback on that change as well.
Yeah. Probably about after we came out of 2021, I didn't have the proper structure at that time, and it was our busiest year. We drilled 109,000 meters that year. I had 9 drills on 8 different projects throughout BC and Manitoba, and I was run ragged, and that amount of crisis indicated to me that I needed to make a change and get some better structure. Garrett transitioned from a foreman in the field to being the operations manager, and Josh Parnell, our other senior foreman, he became the field manager, so he could roam between projects. Garrett would help get stuff ready out of the shop and help with the HR, get all the crews lined up, and then I could work on business development and structuring the company.
Yeah. Okay. So you actually it was a management and structure change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And that changed. Okay. So what was that process like?
Well,
when companies do
credit goes to Matt for not growing too fast throughout the beginner years. We'd go, 2 drills, and we get enough talent together to operate those 2 drills. Then we bumped to 4 drills, again, training the guys, and we wouldn't work over our capacity. And until about 2021, when the industry exploded on us, and we ended up with, 8 or 9 drills spread pretty thin across a few different jobs. And that's when we realized, or Matt came to realize, that we need more structure within the company to help us be more organized for our clients, for our employees as well, and for ourselves, just to stay cool-headed and in the race.
What was that a challenge for you? Because if you're working with a company a long time, you kind of get into the way things are going. And now when you get structural change, and even if they're good, it can be quite fun. I know I frustrated my team.
Yeah.
Before, and will again. Hi, Gabby.
Gabby's smiling off camera right now.
I was up for the challenge for sure.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, when you move from, say, helper to driller, you sometimes bump back to helper to fill the gaps.
Right.
And again, driller to foreman, you bump back to the driller, and so the same thing kind of happened with that operations. If there was ever a gap, I would just kind of wear both hats,
right,
and run operations or HR from the field if I needed to be in the foreman position, and that's just kind of. I'm full time in the office now. We have enough foremen trained up, and we have a whole set of foremen ready to go for next year too.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now the big question then becomes, though, from the client standpoint, because you've obviously increased work when it could be challenging to find work right now. How did that change the way that companies were interacting with you? When you changed that structure and sort of streamlined some of that stuff, did that help the client experience?
It has totally, and that's the reason we were able to grow last year when the market was declining.
Yeah.
Like the market declined 15% in Canada, and we were able to grow by 30% because of the quality of the work that we're able to provide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think the tangible, and there's probably potential clients watching on this, what is the difference of experience, let's say from you in 2018, your company in 2018 to today? What do you think the difference would be?
The structure for sure, right? Like I can focus on making sure all the big pieces are in place. Garrett can have a focused relationship with all of the crews, to make sure that the right guys are going to the right job, that they're trained properly. The in-house training program that Garrett's developed, where everyone. Like there's 3 stages to a helper, there's 3-4 stages to a driller, there's a few stages to a foreman as well. So like we're able to put the right person on the right line on the team.
Yeah. Credit to the crew too to help us get there.
Yeah.
The guys we have a bunch of guys that have been with us for 10 years, 5 years. So we get return employees every year. They're not out getting other jobs with other companies. They're sticking around and and helping us develop everything that we're talking about.
Is that the structure? Because I know, especially for young guys, it's, I grew up playing hockey, and you see the coaches, the more structure they put in, the more fun the kids have. And I don't think that changes. I think when you're 25, you're still kind of a kid. You don't feel like, but you still are.
They're definitely looking for leadership and direction. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they know what's happening. You show up to a place, that feeling of being lost. They're already probably dealing with that in their own lives.
Yeah.
Trying to find direction and purpose and all that stuff. If their company is doing that too, that can be very frustrating.
And with the structure, they know where they're going. They're not just shooting in the dark. They know that there's another position waiting for them. The more responsibility they take,
right,
the better they get at their job.
So these levels, then, do they know where they're at in the level?
Yeah. We have a spreadsheet with all the goals that each employee can look forward to
based on the position.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Pay, responsibilities, and there's a certain criteria for each one, so they know what they need to be doing.
Right.
Yeah. So it's basically a curriculum.
Yeah.
To work their way up to foreman.
Yeah. If you want to go from $35 to $40 an hour as a driller, you need to be doing all of these things correctly all the time.
So all of a sudden, coming hungover every Monday,
oh yeah, we have
might be able to operate.
We have a long
you go
memory.
Backwards with us if you come up.
Yeah, we have a long memory, right? So we'll remember, we know, and we make notes off the side, and we'll also be straight up and have that conversation with you guys.
Yeah, and of course that translates to that experience. Again, going from that client experience, that structure must give them. I mean, when you're contracting out and you show up. I worked in construction. You can tell within 2 minutes if a crew is being well run.
Yeah,
like
proof
it's
is
so
in the
quick.
pudding.
Yeah,
The client knows. They see the numbers. They see the attitude.
Yeah,
they're interacting with the guys every day.
Yeah,
they know.
They hear the conversations while they're walking by. They know all that.
They hear the conversations in the kitchen.
Yeah,
they're at the drill giving them direction and orders and how they receive that and accomplish those goals. It's all documented. They have to talk to their bosses. They have people to answer to as well.
Actually, speaking of documentation, I want to talk about this. I didn't know much about it until you mentioned it, and I don't know if a lot of people do. You have the ISO 9001?
Yeah, ISO 9001 management system.
What is that?
International Standards Organization. It's used primarily in the manufacturing industries it's just a standard that every manufacturer has to follow. And so we have a set procedure for everything we do. When we mobilize a drill, there's a checklist of things that has to happen. When a drill comes back to the shop, there's certain measurements that get done on the drill when it's being rebuilt. So all the gear is up to standard, and that leads to less downtime in the field, which makes us more efficient.
And so would a lot of drilling companies have that standard, or would you be?
There's one other company in Western Canada that has it.
What are the companies that don't? No, I'm kidding. Sometimes I wish I was a news I could just go at people.
Yeah.
But
idea for another show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, wouldn't last long. So that standard, how much of an edge is that for your operation, or does that give you an edge when bidding on projects and things like that?
It gives us some it's just a higher standard for when we go to bid projects, for sure, and it gives us an operational advantage too, just because of the structure that it places within the business.
So this is something like a standard like this, and this is something even for me, I'm still trying to figure out when we're trying to put on processes, because going that line between bureaucracy and slowing things down and making sure things are done efficient and consistent. It's sort of this balancing act. I don't think you ever stop trying to figure out, where does this land in terms of organization, making sure the drills are ready to go, and making sure you're also operating efficiently.
It's kind of up to us to where we want to put it, right? Like you can have a standard and just tick off all the boxes, right? Or you can actually dig into it and make things work. One of the best parts of it is that at the end of the year, we do an employee satisfaction survey with all of the guys. Garrett does that one-on-one with everyone. and that like identifies problems that we have in the business, right? And then we have an internal discussion on that after, and it also helps the guys set goals for where they want to get in their career.
Right. I want to. You look like you were about to say something, so I'll hand it over.
No, yeah, just also bridging the gap between the office and the field helps that communication, because there's so much going on, especially if you have 4 projects going with 8 drills, say. That allows us to have a flow of information going back and forth, and it's documented and tracked, so we can go back. What were the promises we made? What promises do we need to keep? And how do we maintain that quality of workmanship? And the client realizes that we have that, because we're not always answering them with "I don't know" or
right.
I'll have to check with somebody else. It's usually a straightforward answer, or you can just go to this particular website to find out the information.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. And going back, like I imagine things like jiu-jitsu and those kind of things, it makes you realize the value, because like you can't cut a corner in jiu-jitsu. You'll eventually get exposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
absolutely. One mistake.
Yeah. And it's a similar industry though, because the mistakes in drilling, you're talking about like the heli drilling. I have brother-in-laws that did heli logging. I mean, a mistake is it has huge.
The scope of the work can close in on you. So if you're not serious about it, it can sneak up on you.
What is an example of it could be a recent project a couple of years ago. What's an example of a project that's like a standard, it runs well, it's that sort of perfect project for you, where of course there's always going to be challenges, but what would be an example that stands out? You go, that's a good project.
Yeah, I'd say our work for Equity Metals Corporation at the Silver Queen Mine, south of Houston, BC, has been great. We have one drill there. It works consistently kind of throughout the year with a few short breaks here and there. It's nice and easy to manage. It's an hour halfway from the shop.
Yeah.
Our local guys out of Smithers get it kind of on a regular rotation there. And it's an excellent, well-organized client to work for.
When you're operating something like that, when it's consistent, do you kind of learn tips and tricks of how to go, oh, this consistency we can translate to those more challenging jobs? Are there things you can kind of learn out of that consistency? I know it's kind of a messy question, but.
That's a tough one. I think every project we do, we learn from. Yeah, that's one of the funnest things about drilling, is that every day you're learning something new.
We're master adapters.
Yeah,
each project presents its own challenges, and that's what we do. That's our job, is to adjust to the client's needs.
So is that pretty unique then, to have a project like that where it's just sort of that drill is running, you basically do your maintenance?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it is. I'd say like the average project in the industry is like 3,000 meters and lasts for like a month to 6 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you maintain a job? What are the keys to maintaining a job like that?
Production and good workmanship. Communication.
Yeah.
And it starts with our systems in the shop. When we mob a job, we've got a set inventory that goes out on every project that's the same. So no matter where the guys go, they're getting the same boxes with the same parts.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and things like you mentioned communication, and that's an easy one to go. Everybody goes communication. Mm-hmm. What's an example on that? Let's say you use that product specific. What is an example of good communication specifics? And then what would be an example of the opposite of that? Or not an example, but what would a communication breakdown look like?
Consistent check-ins from leadership on the project,
right?
With the project geo
being there,
and timesheets. Yeah, we're using a timesheet app now, Drill with Lantern, and it's helped us kind of bridge that gap of communication for the expectation to have timesheets on the project geo's desk every morning.
Right.
Before, we were just using a bit of a spreadsheet, and foremans were using different vocabulary for different parts and stuff like that. This really brings everything together and streamlines not only the vocabulary, there's drop downs for all the parts.
It just sets a standard across across the board for every project, right?
Yeah, that's actually, so this is that's actually what I was referencing earlier when I said like a project like that probably sort of allows you to use like an application, get that worked in, and now that translates. Now you go, okay, this is great. We can put that out to every job. So now every job gets a little more efficient because you have this consistent product. We can kind of play around with those types of apps. I imagine there was an onboarding, a training program, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We rolled it out slowly. We just started on one project and then expanded it from there. And it there's a couple little growing pains, mostly our fault, learning how to run the system, right?
Usually things are your fault, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, drillers and computers are not the best mix.
Yeah, exactly.
The computers, I still, like, it's amazing. We have filmed so many episodes and we still have technical issues that just happen. Or just goes, I'm not connected anymore. We don't know why.
Yeah.
Camera resets.
There's always challenges in drilling, and they're not going to stop. It's just how you deal with them that makes the difference.
That's where all the difference is. And the processes that are implemented to do it. I wanted to ask you, the opposite of a consistent project like that. Are you able to talk about any of the crazy projects, ones that are just hard to get to, hard to get people? The scope of work is changing, like those kind of projects. Any of those stand out to you? Or can you even?
I'd say like the most challenging project for us last year was probably going into Alaska. We'd never worked in the States before. So everything was new, like importing the equipment to the States, getting work visas for the guys, working in a different culture, right? Working with different types of helicopters. It had a very long distance, like challenging Mobin. And we knew going in that it would historically, the drilling production on that project was about 24 meters a day, and recovery was poor as like 50%. We were able to go in and increase production from 24 meters to 50 meters a day and take the recovery from 50% to 90%.
Wow.
Because we have the good systems from the other projects to take to there.
And is that what it is? It's I'm sure it's the people that you've got working, but it's the systems that are in place that are causing those wins.
Yeah, it's definitely the systems.
So does the company, when the company hires you to do that job, do they have that expectation that you're going to, or are you surpassing it? If they're at 24 and you get to 50, what are they expecting?
They're expecting anything better than what they got.
Right.
Yeah. It's I'll never guarantee production because there's far too many variables.
Right.
Yeah. But consistently over time, we know what we can do, and we just try and emulate that on every project.
I wanted to ask you about, like, you've done, I want to ask you about your Indigenous partnerships as well, but, Manitoba, Northwest Territories, Yukon, Alaska. Does the environment, is it the same? Are you using your internal guys, or are you having to piece together some of these projects as well, like local people? What are the challenges of doing that?
That ties into like our First Nations partnerships a bit, because every place we go, we try and hire from the local community first for our entry-level positions, or if there's experienced people in the area, we'll bring them on board. When we started working in Lynn Lake, Manitoba 10 years ago now, there was it's a mining town, and there was a few guys there that had experience on the drills. We brought them on, and Rio, one of our drillers that's from Lynn Lake, he's worked all over Canada for us now.
Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of pick up guys along the way almost.
Yeah, for sure.
The intention is to train them all the way to foreman if we can.
But what do you do? I mean, it's not always going to be a home run. How are you approaching that when you're working with First Nations? You get a couple guys, one of them's not good, one of them's great. Obviously the great guy, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
The hard guy, the challenging.
In, what was it, 2021, we were 1 for 11 guys. So for every 11 guys, one would stick around.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now stick around is in the other 10. They just, the work
quit on
done?
the job
Or
because
they
the work
were
was still
gone?
hard. Yeah.
Really?
So we realized we needed to adjust a few things.
1 out of 11.
Yeah. And that's standard for the industry.
Man.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun.
Again, up for the challenge. So we adjusted not only the schedule Like our guys mostly work 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Okay.
Some 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. So what we did is we dialed that back for the entry level, especially with local communities.
Because you'd see 3 and 4 would just be too hard on guys.
It's a shock to the system to go over 4.
Yeah, I did. I tore down a mine for a month up in the Yukon, and I had never done sort of like that remote camp work before. I found by week 4 I started to get used to it, but around the week 2 or 3, you're kind of like, you don't even care how much money you're making.
Yeah,
you're kind of just done.
Yeah, you're really questioning your life choices.
Yeah, exactly. You really are. And you're going like, I just kind of want to go home. You know, if you got a girlfriend or whatever.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Right? Is like
Family.
being away from home, being away from your community, your support network and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And especially people from indigenous communities where the community is really tight knit. As soon as you take somebody out of that environment, they really miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we take advantage of that adjustment in the schedule, and it helps us actually give more jobs. So we can do a 2 week on, 2 week off rotation.
Yeah.
Adding more bodies on site from the community, and the entry level position, we don't just put them onto the helper side, which is normal if it's just a skid drill. If we're doing heli work, we'll get them on the pad building crew.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little easier. They get to just do a little bit of brushing, learn how to run a chainsaw, see how the guys are on the drill because they help move the drill, but there's no production expectation for them. It's not as high pace of an environment. And then after a while, they see what's going on deck with the drill, especially working around the helicopter. And then some of them get to asking if they can move up.
Yeah, it's quite, I'm going to go back to the jiu-jitsu thing because it's a little bit. I do boxing, so that's more my. And it's the same. You can't. I think there's sometime in the hard environment cultures is this idea of just throw people in, and like if they survive, but like if you do that with boxing, I mean you'll seriously hurt. I'm terrible. If I go, I'm good. If you got me in 100 people that don't box, I'm in the top half. In boxers, I'm in the bottom half.
Yeah.
They will kill me.
Yeah.
Like they'd literally kill me.
Yeah.
So it would just be so pointless for us to be doing certain things.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens in these tough environments, which are already tough because you're separating them from their family. These are people that they're coming from, hard places, so that their mentality is like that.
Yeah, I'd go as saying that the helper position is probably one of the most physically demanding jobs in the country.
Right. My nephew did it.
Yeah.
And he came back from it got more normal, but he was just jacked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expectation, but it's healthy for them if they can do it, and it's healthy for them to start on the pad building crew and work their way up, gain that strength, gain that knowledge of, yes, they can work those weeks at a time, and then make them hungry and want to move up to that
and
position.
see that scale where they can get to. Have you seen that 1 out of 11? Has that changed?
I think it has. I think with our crew it has.
Yeah. Our return employees are like always coming back.
Really?
Yeah. And we're seeing guys grow and move up the chain like way faster now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And getting more and more trainers within the crew as well, taking on that position of helping guys learn.
And I'm sure that ranking thing that you've done, that's helped that sort of flow as well. Before I let you go, there's two things I want to touch on your YouTube channel because that's quite good. I want to bring that up, and I want to Indigenous partnerships. I'm going to frame it as over the years I've asked the simple questions: how does it work, and that. And I think it's sort of it ends up being a communication conversation. But I want to sort of do the opposition question again. How did you approach those Indigenous partners? Again, pick a year, maybe 6 years ago as to now. How have you evolved your approach to those relationships?
I always whenever we'd be on a project and there was an Indigenous community involved with the client, I would try and just open up a conversation with the Indigenous community and see where it would go. In the last probably 3 to 4 years, there's been a significant increase in the necessity to have that partnership. Yeah, pretty much every project now that in Western Canada, you need to be partnered with Indigenous community to give them benefits from the project. The primary benefit is employing local people.
Right.
Yeah. And we've been able to do a really good job of that, especially in Yellowknife last year, and that led us to get a formal partnership with Dayton Show.
What would a former partnership look like?
We have a partnership agreement where we work together 50-50 on projects.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a monetary partnership and everything. Yeah.
Okay. But the primary purpose of it is to employ people within the local community.
Right. Okay.
And the benefit to us from that partnership is that we've trained so many First Nations people that they're the majority of our crew. And when we work internationally in the States now, we can use those employees to get into the States without a work visa, and it's helping us crew our American projects.
Oh, I see. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's a win for us because we have a great labor pool that we can use internationally, and it's a win for the community because that person just doesn't have a job for like 3 months in the summer when there's a project running there. They get to work year round on other projects.
Yeah, we bring them with us.
So when you're communicating with leadership and Indigenous leadership, is it about what you're saying or how you're saying it? Obviously, it's both. It's always both. But I mean, these bands now they've been collaborating with companies for years and years now. So their communication, they kind of know how they're going to approach it now.
Oh, definitely, for sure. The agreements are fairly standard throughout Canada. The biggest advantage that we can offer is that we'll train the people properly from the community, and we'll give them benefits of working on other projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Including in the U.S. That's a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
To create those partnerships, and all of a sudden it gives you access across the border.
Yeah.
Just bam, like
give them
that.
tools and experience to work for other companies and other parts of the industry as well.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want to ask about your you do the YouTube channel, don't you?
Yeah.
What how did that start? And I really like you do a technical. We're going to share links and we'll bring it up on the screen here and stuff. You went technical, which I cannot tell you, and I'm no exaggeration. I've probably had hundreds of conversations. People say we don't want to get into the weeds, and I'm like, if it's over 2 minutes, you got to get into the weeds, or else nobody cares.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you came up with that your platform, you're getting very technical. I know it's technical because I don't understand half of it, but it is.
It all started on a loose leaf piece of paper where I was drawing these diagrams for not only the drillers, but entry-level geos that didn't really understand what was going on downhole. And then I ended up with like this little, I called it a comic book when I was training drillers or training helpers or showing at geos what was going on. And so I had all these drawings, and then one day got an iPad like you have there and started digitizing all these drawings.
Oh.
And then Matt and I got to talking about a YouTube channel. So we, started taking some videos and doing some promotional shots. And we decided that we were going to kind of do a little bit of a training session on the YouTube channel. Just small blurbs, about 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
And just discussing the fundamentals of drilling.
You know what I love about what you're doing is it doesn't look like you're trying to copy something else. It looks like it's your thing. You're doing it the way you decided to do it.
Yeah.
But it's done right. If the camera angle's good and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
But that's you're just sharing what you do as a company in a technical way. What has the response been like? I mean, it's still fairly new. You don't have 50,000 viewers on a video yet. But
not yet.
Not yet. But I am saying that because it has. I'm trying to encourage going is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our intention. So that was like our first little series, just a tester. Really good reaction from the clients and geos on site. They recognize me from the video, and they tell me that they learned a whole bunch, and now they have an idea of what's going on at the drill when they go to it. And so that was our intention, is to kind of not only just train our own guys, but also the entry-level geos who are going to be working their way up over the next few years and becoming project managers themselves.
Yeah, it sort of becomes a log now of training modules.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Plus a little promotional thing as well. It's kind of got that nice mixture.
Yeah. So we're working a little bit on the production, and we'll do another series of videos soon.
Well, we're going to get you a few subscribers by putting that out there. Just anything to not that. The biggest thing, how many videos of those have you done?
We have 5. I think I'll be posting another one within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is these words of wisdom. The first 10 are the hard. Everybody stops after 10.
Yeah.
Everybody stops.
I'll make sure I do 15 at least.
And if you do 15, there is something, there's this magic number that happens.
Yeah, we got a bunch of ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen people back when we used to have the white bricks. There was a company, it looked like us. They had like white bricks and everything. But it's always like, we'll see if they do 10. If they're doing 10, they become competition.
Yeah.
It's that first 10 though. That's
cool.
Because I think it's just people start by the 5th, they're like, oh, there's still only 200 views.
Yeah.
And they start to get tired.
Yeah. No, even just the props from the field when I see the geos or at the conferences, everybody,
it's so fun.
People recognize me and they appreciate it, and they say they learned a lot from it.
Yeah, and the other amazing thing with YouTube is that 2 years later, because you're doing such specific topics, someone will look that up and that video will pop up. There's not that much content in your field.
Exactly.
That even if it's another 10 views over a year, those views are very specific.
That was our intention too, is when people Google our name, this type of stuff pops up. So it's good for marketing as well.
No, it's great. No, Dorado is doing, it's a case study on how to operate a tough business. It's not an easy one.
It's a challenging environment, that's for sure.
Like this business we're doing is challenging-ish.
Yeah.
But you see, I mean, I'm sitting here in a studio. There's not wind blowing in my face.
Yeah.
Minus 40.
Minus 40 and another foreman from the company that you're working for coming over and challenging everything. We don't have to deal with any of that stuff. And I've worked in the construction side, so I've got a taste of what that's like.
Yeah.
So the build that you've done it's impressive. It's genuinely an impressive thing. So and we're kind of from the same neighborhood, same region. So that's
absolutely.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope we do this again. This is our first one, and I hope it goes well. So we're back in, and there's plenty more we can talk about. So
see you again. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We're going to put a link to Dorado's YouTube, their website, LinkedIn. Follow them. That'll have been popping up before that, so you already have an opportunity to do it. If you haven't, though, just go to the description. You'll find all that information. And you both have LinkedIn, right?
Correct.
Yep. Well, you can connect directly with both gentlemen right from the description as well. Just click, and then you can connect with them. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Mining Now.